Well, I think everything's up. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 9th day of April, 2019. Well, I'm getting started a little bit later today. If I can talk, I don't know. I was just at the VA in Bend, so my husband had a 9 o'clock appointment for today. And how do I know this? I made the appointment for him yesterday. So wait times aren't particularly long, as you can tell here locally, for vets to get in, at least if you're in the system. I don't know about vets that aren't yet, but apparently they had changed his appointment to 8:20 and didn't bother to contact us and let us know that. So we got an appointment at 9, and we were, maybe about 10 minutes late for the one they actually gave us ultimately. And so they did see him, fortunately. They managed to shuffle things around and they got him in and out of there. And everything looks good. So that was a nice visit. He has these little, what's called pterygiums in his eyes. They're these little, I don't know, tissue-like deposits that I don't know, they'll like go across the eye into the colored part of it. He has blue eyes like I do, and so it goes into the blue. But here's the thing. He's had them for a long time. Theoretically, I guess they're due to sun damage, but his are receding. And they can't really say why. I mean, I know why. It's the cannabis oil. So I know that's what it is. And they don't know why. So we just sat there quietly. But the doctor acknowledged, well, you must be doing something right, because your eyes look great. So anyhow, it's always satisfying, when your approach to health is validated without them knowing about it, Well, his other doctor, his primary care doctor knows about it, and he just sort of poo-poos all of it. But he can't understand why my husband's numbers at 65 years old, his test results are the way they are. They want him to take cholesterol. He doesn't have bad cholesterol, so why should he? They have him labeled as diabetic, except that he's not. It's what happens when they decide to reduce the level, the threshold for when you're over. And that's what they've done. They decide, well, we're going to reduce all of that. And so then suddenly all these people are testing positive for diabetes, right? When in fact, it's just that they've lowered the numbers. They can sell more drugs. And now with insulin being exorbitantly expensive, I mean, when did that happen? I had a dog once that was diabetic, and I had to give that little miniature schnauzer, I had to give that dog insulin. And I remember at the time I could go without prescription to Safeway, to their pharmacy, and I could get a little vial of insulin for $25. What happened? That's just obscene, isn't it? But for some reason, they decided to label him that, and now the ophthalmologist that he saw today is saying, "Look, you need to tell your doctor to take that out of your chart." I actually had a primary care doctor do that for me. She asked me, "Do you want me to take this out? You're not diabetic. You never were." I'm like, yeah, I know. But when I was ill, I ended up going on metformin because either the illness itself or the drugs they had me on caused an insulin-resistant condition that we couldn't get under control. So they put me on metformin. And then when I healed and got into remission and all that using cannabis, I just started coming off all of it. And I'm not on any of that now and haven't been for a long, long time. And so at that time, they just said, well, why don't we just take this out of your chart? Because we really don't want it in there unless you are. It tends to trigger other things, right? Including, in the case of my husband, additional eye visits and things like that. See, he had poked himself in the eye with a stick accidentally one time. And so there was like a broken blood vessel in the eye. But because of that diabetes diagnosis, which was not true, they're thinking, oh my God, you've got an eye problem that's related to that. And he kept saying, no, I don't think so. And then finally, it healed, and they're looking for it and it's not there. And they're like, well, where'd it go? He's like, guys, I tried to tell you. But we don't really complain about the VA because on balance, no matter what they have to contend with, funding wise, these people are dedicated and they take care of our vets. I don't think, although my husband has had to deal with wacky stuff over the years, the one thing that he's never, ever, and I mean ever, questioned was the staff's commitment to the patients and to the veterans. These people care. They're doing the best they can. Both the technician, I think she's a technician, and then all I know is she graduates in May, and the ophthalmologist, the attending, they both women, they were respectful, friendly, knowledgeable, engaging, bringing things up, not waiting to bring things up, suggesting things, just all and all while they're doing construction there at the site. They're going to put in some more exam rooms, and so they're having to shuffle people all over the place, trying to keep the work flowing and keep the patients coming in and out, and they're just, I don't know, I just can't say enough about the folks here in Bend, and I can't say enough about the folks at the Portland VA Medical Center, the hospital there in Portland. Great people, just great people. So fund them. Don't forget about this privatizing nonsense. Just forget about that and give the VA enough money to take care of veterans, period. These people are innovative there. You're not going to get better doctors, nurses, technicians. You just aren't. A lot of folks, they go and they do their internships, their residencies, all of those things there. They get training that they're not going to get any other place. And they get to work with patients, with veterans of all ages. And so they get to see everything from young guys and young women to elder care. They get to experience all of it. And so I don't know, just fund the VA. Don't argue about it, just do it. Anyhow, my rant for the day. Well, let's get started here. If you haven't been here before, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're back, thank you so much. We're going to get started here, and today is a 9-day, and so it's a day for completion. Maybe some things are coming to fruition for you today, or you're ready to complete something today. Let's go ahead and draw a card, see what we have. As always, I take the 13th card just for randomness sake. So here we have the 7 of Cups, which some people look at in terms of fantasy versus reality, but the 7s are about balance and balancing shadow side with spirit and divinity and all of that. It's the numerical depiction of the scales. But here you see a lot of things, a lot of stuff, coming out of these cups. You've got a hat, you've got a serpent, a griffon, a wreath, some jewels. There's a castle on a mountain there. You've got a head of someone's, and but I don't see it as being unrealistic or your head in the clouds. I see that as the beginnings of new ideas, even though it's the cups, it's the suit of cups, and so that's emotions. I just don't see this as a negative card or as something that we need to be concerned with. I suppose if you're always living in fantasy, that might be something. But basically, this is about delusion and temporary success and addiction and things like that. External splendor with internal corruption. So, overactive imagination. So, okay, that's the traditional idea behind all of this. But there's also something that I wrote down here at one time, awareness of the multidimensional self. There's that as well, I think, incorporated in this. I think that it's gotten a bad rap. I think that this is a card of creativity. I think that it's a card of desire, of things we want. So if it's something that we want, then why wouldn't we dream of things that, maybe we'll be able to have once we finish the college degree and we get a job and we're gainfully employed? We could just be thinking about all the things that we stand to gain in life once we do X, Y, and Z. So I look upon this is desire, it's creativity, it's imagining the future, it's imagining whatever we don't have and what we might like to have. Now, of course, it can be something, and it depends on the other cards around it, or maybe just what's going on in your life. I mean, sure, it could mean unrealistic ideas or fantasy, living in a dream world and all of that. But where do new ideas and new innovations and new opportunities come if they're not dreamed up by us? Okay, so I don't know. I know some people think it's a bad card, and I suppose depending upon the surroundings, it might be, but I don't know. I just think, where else does this stuff come from if not from our imagination? So when the Seven of Cups comes up, don't be so quick to say, oh, unrealistic ideas, and all of that, and you're just, not thinking right. So not particularly grounded emotionally or something, the heads in the clouds. So I don't know. I think they could be that, but I think it's also that it's where innovation comes from. It's where new ideas come from. It's almost like it provides the nathes within, that inner friction, to succeed and to get ahead, so that you can maybe elevate your status, your social safety net, if you will. You can buy a better health insurance plan, or you can just elevate your status in the world, so that you're not so worried about things all of the time. Maybe you buy another house that's bigger, that's more expensive, because now you have the income to do it. But that starts from in here, doesn't it? Wishing for something better. Let's draw another card and see if it can add anything to this. Well, we have the World. We drew this. Did we draw this yesterday, or was that? Let me look. Well, I don't have my lighted magnifying glass, so I'll have to just try to wing this here. No, it was the Hierophant yesterday. It must have been last week. But here we have the World, and here it's the last card of the major arcana, so it's the 21st card. So we're talking manifestation. It's a 3 energy. You see the 4 quarters, basically. They represent, they depict air, fire, water, and earth. So the 4 elements. You see the lemniscate both up and down, tying the wreath together, keeping everything going in cycles. We think, oh, as the world turns and all of that. Basically, it's the end of the fool's journey. So the fool has essentially come full circle, if in a sense. And so you get that sense there with the two lemniscates, the figure eights there, the ribbons, the red ribbons. They're wrapped around in that figure eight fashion, also known as a lemniscate. In a sense, the fabric that's wrapped around her body, in a sense, is coiled in the similar fashion, just sort of undoing itself here at the end of things. But we don't just end, do we? Currently, we've been reincarnating. At some point during ascension, when we start ascending and we're not doing the reincarnation cycle any longer, then this might actually look a little different. We're not going to be coming back into the world again after leaving for a bit, and reincarnating. Instead, we will ascend on to other, we'll choose to ascend to other densities and dimensions of experience. So maybe that's what she's doing there. She's unwinding that wreath, that cyclical nature, that reincarnation nature of existence. And maybe she's actually doing her own ascension there. Because at some point we won't do this. At some point we won't reincarnate this way back to this earth. We will do other things. It's what was always intended, but somehow or another, the folks that came here and genetically manipulated us to do their bidding, because of their intervention, I guess, so the story goes, benevolent races have decided that they're going to shepherd us a little bit, keep us safe from these people. That, in other words, y'all have done enough to these folks. Let's let them be, and let's let them develop and grow and become on their own, and let them get back to what they were supposed to be. Well, that's kind of where we're at right now spiritually. It's called the ascension. If you're coming here, you likely already know. but if you haven't heard of it, it's just something where spiritually, we're not these bodies. We're actually soul energy, and we're of the Creator, and we have far more power and control over the physicality of our essence. when we focus into some kind of form, we actually have more control over that than we realize. And so ascension is about taking back that control and going where we want to go, instead of having to come back here because we're in some kind of loop or cycle. Let's do a third card. But when you have the 7 and you're talking about imagination and maybe some creativity, and then you're coming to the world, which is some completion, which aligns with today's 9 energy of completion, we come full circle. So maybe something with respect to the creative ideas here that are present in the 7 of Cups, maybe something is finishing up there. Or maybe something is finishing up and we can now start something new that's sort of, gelling around in our head. Because I drew the the 10 of Swords here as the last card. A 10 is about new beginnings. So you kind of have, I'm going to get a rune going here. I know this looks like it's a bad situation here because clearly you've got 10 swords piercing the back of an individual who's now laying dead in the sand next to the water. You've got maybe sun breaking there. So darkest before the dawn, you see the really black sky, but it's starting to break up there at the horizon. So you can see where, dawn is, the sun is rising on this grisly scene, basically. But what it means is that we've gone as far as we can go. It's over. Now it's time to begin anew. And you see that depicted in the world, because now we're going to start all over again. The fool begins his journey all over again. But the 7C, what that's saying in is, well, then what's that going to look like? So why don't we just switch these cards around? Let's put this way. Let's do the 10. We'll do this first. Okay? Darkest before dawn. Okay? And now we're going to start something new. We've come full circle. This is about success and completion. It's also about what we've manifested, both before, during the original life, and what are we going to manifest now in the new one? Which brings us to the Seven of Cups. Maybe a little less of this. So we've got 1, 3, that's 4, and 7 is 11. Master number for illumination. So that's the numerology for the reading. What kind of an awakening are we coming into? Well, Rado, which is the 5th rune of the Elder Futhark, 5 denotes change and fulfillment, again, aligning well with the reading. So 11 and 5 is what? 16. 6 and 1 is 7, aligning with this. So definitely, this is the next step. Now, Rado is an interesting rune. You can see Laguz in it. You can see Kenaz in it. But the thing about Rado, it's about movement over obstacles. It's about reciprocity. It's about rider and horse. And so you're moving in a balanced, rhythmic fashion with someone else, interacting as you go. There's the reciprocity of that, one depending upon the other in order to move along. The horse needs guidance. The traveler needs to be carried. So there's and the traveler the rider needs to go and tell the horse where to go. Or, he'll just go find a patch of green grass and hang out. That's all he'll do, just eat. So, in a sense, with the Ten of Swords, our journeys kind of come to a close, as evidenced, at least that one stage of it, and as evidenced by the world, where we've come full circle now, and we're ready to begin again, to take that same journey again. But in this case, if it's about reincarnation, then we reincarnate and we do it all over again and begin the fool's journey. But hopefully this time, more and more people are finding that that's not happening for them, that there's not going to be a reincarnation cycle for them, that instead they're going to ascend on to other things that we've never seen before, things we've never experienced before. And I see that in the Seven of Cups. But you can see how if you move cards around, you can kind of get the actual, just because you draw cards in a row doesn't mean you have to leave them there. You can move them around, and you should, really. If it makes more sense. But here I think, we've gone as far as we can go with the 10. We're moving into a new cycle with the world, and the sky's the limit in terms of our imagination, what that's going to look like. But that we're going to go forward in unity and reciprocity and rhythmic balance. Well, that's interesting. Let me look here and just check on Rado, make sure that I haven't left something out. But yeah, safe travel. We're going to go forward, though. You see Kenaz down there on the side there. It does this. We're going to go forth in illumination, aren't we? Because we have an 11 here, and that's the master number for illumination. So we're going to go forward in unity, eyes open, with clarity. So yeah, I don't see this as something that's a negative at all. I don't see that this is unrealistic ideas or fantasy or head in the clouds. I think that this is where we're going, or a result of where we're going. Sometimes it can mean maybe the path is not correct. So if you want to look at this in a traditional way, now that we've come full circle and we're going in another direction, we're going into something new, make sure that we aren't dealing in fantasy, make sure that there's some realism. But at the same time, again, if we're always realistic, how does innovation happen? How does anything wonderful that happens that suddenly, just out of the blue, you don't even think about it, it's not planned, but there it is, and you go for it. That's what I think this means. But yeah, rhythmic cyclical action, create harmonious working relationships, finding true purpose. I mean, mostly though, you're talking process versus goal, aren't you? You know, we can be goal oriented, but then maybe we don't think about, you know, I knew someone that got a 2-year business degree, did not care if he studied, did not care about any of it, wanted the degree, didn't care what the grades were, wanted the degree. Didn't understand that part and parcel with getting the degree was learning the material and doing well with it. Because if you do well with it, you assume that you've learned it, right? Not always, but usually. But that's an example of someone who was goal oriented and in the process just escaped him. Now he got it, such as it was, but you know, I'm sure the professors were like, well, dude, you know, okay, you got it, but so I wouldn't hire you. So, you know, the degree is supposed to indicate competence, not just, you know, getting by. This whole idea of college, I think. Anyway, but yeah, I think that that's what this is. We're on another journey. We've come to some kind of completion, and we're going to move on into something else. And of course, you know, the issue is going to be whether or not we see this as innovative and or things that we might be able to acquire once we turn in a new direction that's more lucrative, maybe. But understand the reciprocity that's involved, understand the rhythmic, harmonious working relationships that typically happen when this is happening. You don't want to do it on your own, you know, so to speak. You want to, if you have other people helping you, you want to allow for that instead of just trying to take the reins and doing it all yourself. That's another concept with Rado. Um, you know, it's not always easy to do things. My husband is. It's not always easy to work together with people. My husband can work well with others. It's just that he is such a leader that he just sort of is the one that leads. I mean, he doesn't have to. He doesn't, you know, if someone else knows more, he's more than happy to be in the subordinate role. So it's not that he can't do it. It's just that, you know, it's just somebody usually just ends up being the leader, and it's usually my husband. I'm similar. So uh, that poses a problem because we both want to lead. And so one has to decide, you know, either we can lead together or one of us has to take a back seat right now. And so we do, but it's the nature, you know, is all of that, I think. And with Rado, I think the lesson there is learning how to work in rhythmic harmony with other people, being more process oriented. It's when you get to the goal, it's like your eye is so focused on finishing things up that you want to hurry, 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 and you want to get there. You know, I've known people that they take car trips for vacations, you know, and the dad drives and the dad just has to get there. You know, they can't enjoy the scenery. They can't stop, take pictures. It's like, no, 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 no. I got to get there. I got to get there, you know? And you wonder, I mean, do you ever just stop and breathe? so so that's the other part of Rado. So maybe the 10 is signifying that maybe you're not needing to be the authority anymore. If you want to look at all of this, you could look at this in terms of authority. Um, I'd feel more like that though if it were wands. But swords can be authority too. But here with the 10, everything is so out of balance, it's just done. So, but yeah, I think we're going into a new direction these days, maybe. So check in and see, maybe or maybe it's just a sign that it's just time to let something go and to get back into the rhythm of life and to get back into the rhythm with other people. Maybe you've been someone who has just maybe stayed away from people for a while. Maybe you've separated yourself from others. Maybe you've just had a hard time interacting with other people um, for whatever reason. But maybe this is also a signal to maybe try some of that and get back involved with people. Maybe if you at work, if you're challenged that way, maybe you have a hard time. Maybe you prefer to work alone. It's just something you like to do. You struggle maybe with other people. Maybe this is a sign that it's time to try that, to just try to go and be a part of something instead of being the sole proprietor of it. And then again, Rado could simply be describing the cycles of life. So in that case, then it could, align with the world in that respect. So cool. I just think that on this day of completion, we've got so much of that here. We've got, the 10 of swords and the world both align well with the 9 and the idea of completion and finishing up, beginnings and endings. Because if you look at Rado, it almost embodies the energy of the figure 8 or the lemniscate, doesn't it? It's just constant motion in rhythm and in harmony. There's reciprocity within that. So maybe the new direction that we're taking involves a little more give and take with others. So, or if not with others, just more balance within. Maybe things just got really out of hand here, and we need to put it all aside and start again. So yeah, see if that resonates. I don't know. I don't get anything real specific here. I just get like a general flow of things. So see how this affects you. It may not, it may. But overall, you're looking at a master number of 11 for the numerology for the cards, and that's illumination. So that's higher self. And so whatever has happened here, it's just time to let that go. If there was conflict, if there were, an argument, a big argument, maybe between a group of people, who knows? Whatever it is, though, it's significant enough that it's caused an ending of some kind. Maybe the realization, the long, dark night of the soul moment, to where you can start to see the dawn is breaking, and so maybe some realization is happening. Maybe you're beginning to see things differently. I just don't think that this was the problem. So I don't think it's imagination that's the problem, or that you're too focused on that. It just doesn't feel that way. So yeah, process over goal, and maybe starting something new here, letting go of things that no longer serve, and heading in a different direction, one that's based on harmony with others. So think about that. See how that works for you today, for the next couple of days, maybe. This feels like it's a little bigger than just today. So, but then April's been like that. You know, the geomancy reading I did for the month and the tarot reading I did for the month, both of those things basically said this, that we're going to this April's going to be a month of new beginnings, of endings and beginnings, of beginning new projects, of things coming to fruition, things gelling, all of that. So I don't know. I think maybe that's really where we're going here, and this is just a new direction for us. So, you know, and for some of us, that's a tough thing. We don't like change. We don't want to go in a new direction. We don't want to try something new. We don't want to use our imagination. We want everything to be the same. So, anyhow, all righty. Well, I think that'll do it then. I think that's all I got on this. But yeah, I see how this resonates. If maybe there's just been too much, and it's time to let something go, let our thoughts settle, and take a new direction on things. Maybe one that's maybe a little more emotionally based instead of so, you know, in our head too much. Maybe we need to be a little bit more in our heart and allow some creativity to come from there. Maybe that's the genesis of the new direction. So in any event, I will be back tomorrow. It's going to be Thursday when my husband's got that other doctor's appointment. So, and I'll be a little bit late that day, probably later than today, because that one may take longer. So anyhow, I will be back tomorrow though. So thanks so much for coming by. Click subscribe. I'd love you to do that. And check out the blog, Stepping Aside, over at imsteppingaside.com. And I've got I did a Robin Wood Tarot 6-card reading that I posted yesterday, and it was kind of prescient for today because it was about, I discovered that I had 3 groupings of 11, which, if you want to bring it all together, was 33. So that's the master number for Christ consciousness. And so I had 3 groupings of illumination, and coming together, creating Christ consciousness. So it was kind of interesting to do it from that perspective. So if you want to check that out, it's there. It's the most recent post up there. And lunar transits are up, and I think I called it Gemini Moon Magic or some such thing. Those are up, and so I guess that's it. I guess that covers everything. Anyhow, I guess I will see you tomorrow then. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another. Blessed be.